Good morning, YouTube people. How are you? We are live. So today, hi, Michael.
Hello.
You're good, ready?
Yes.
Did you need to set something up?
No. Everything is good. I have the poem pulled up already and everything.
Okay,
So we are good.
perfect. So we are on. You have this camera, which is for YouTube. Your mic is working. We're live on Newtown Radio. And I wanted to present you first before we even start. So today we have Michael, which is exciting because he's a fellow poet and a photographer. So I'm like super excited to have this episode. I'm gonna read your bio and then I have so much questions. So first of all, let's present Michael. So Michael Isaiah, he also goes by Lone Wolf when it's part of the community as the poetry. That's the poetry name, right? Not the photography name.
That's the poet name. Yes.
Poet name, yeah, okay. Okay. I'm so excited. Let's read that. So, Michael Isaiah, aka Lone Wolf, is a Brooklyn-born, Bronx-raised spoken word artist and a 4 times Off-Broadway photographer. I have so many questions about that. With a poetic journey that began in 2008, Michael has been captivating audience on stage since 2018, using his words to weave stories of resilience, identity, and community. His artistic eye extends beyond poetry into photography, a passion he's honed since his teenage years. In 2023, Michael began collaborating with Mictastic, led by Leah V. It's going to be linked also in the comments below, so in the description. So if you're looking for open mics, that's going to be linked below. Sorry, I'm going to continue. And in 2024, he joined forces with Too Much and Extra by Will Succeed the Artist, right? This is an artist name.
Yes, that's another poet.
Okay. Also going to be down below. You can check them out. Both projects showcase his ability to capture moments that pulse with life and creativity. A multi-talented artist, Michael Isaiah, aka Lone Wolf, continues to merge his visual and verbal arts, leaving an indelible mark on New York City vibrant creative scene. This is Michael, everybody. I am so excited. So first of all, I have a question about the 4 times Off-Broadway photographer. Please explain what that means.
So in April, Leah V came to me and wanted me to do a show at the Triad. The Triad Theater is an off-Broadway theater where Lady Gaga first started.
Wow.
So a lot of big names have been in that theater. I've been doing it so far. I've done 3 Triad shows, but I've done 4 off-Broadway shows altogether. So the more I'm in that space, the better I feel. And the pictures will always show that through the lighting that's in there and just the skill that I have behind the lens, which she trusts me with 100%.
Wow. Yeah, that's exciting. Capturing performances, you get to capture the feeling of the art. Like it's I love doing that because sometimes I would take photos of musicians on stage and you like when I capture a photo and you can see the emotion of the poet, the singer, the musicians on stage. It's such it's hard to describe with words, but you can see everything on their face. And especially like when it comes with like this beautiful stage and the lights, beautiful.
It was something special for me. Because when I do photos in general, I'm trying to capture emotion. So hand gestures, like if they're screaming, things like that, I'll capture it and it'll come out perfect. I have a few where they're throwing their hands up in the air, throwing them out, like having their hands up. It's a lot when it comes to that. And it's like, wow, okay, even if I wasn't there, it feels like I was because the photos will actually put you as if you were there in the room itself.
That means you're a good photographer. That's all it's about, right? Catching this emotion, telling the story through a photo. I think I got so carried away. I didn't even present the topic for today. I'm sorry, YouTube. I'm sorry, Newton. I was like just jumping into it. So today's topic is finding your community through art, through poetry, to photography. So basically being an artist in New York City, we talk about it a lot, but today specifically is very special to me because Michael is a poet and a photographer, and I'm also a poet and a photographer. So we have a lot to talk about. So if you are in this creative field, the episode is definitely for you, because we're going to cover just the journey of being an artist in New York City, and we're going to give some tips about how to get started, where to go, how to get involved with the community, you know, because I feel like it's such a tight community here in New York City where like everyone knows everybody. Like Michael was just mentioning me a few names and I'm like, I think I heard these names and I know the places because it's a small community. So if you want to be a part of it, definitely stay tuned in the episode because we're going to have a lot to talk about. But yeah, so now when I presented the topic properly, we can continue. I wanted to ask you how you got into photography.
When it comes to like me with photography, I've always been taking pictures. Specifically, me in front of a camera, I've always taken pictures like for like school, for like different like regular photo shoots that I've had. So I'm naturally good in front of a camera, but me getting behind the camera, I do it on like vacations, things like that. But it came from my mentor, who his name is L.A. Wins, Lawins.
Okay.
Amazing photographer, videographer. He does films, he raps, he does a lot.
Nice.
So he's always been like over my shoulder, even if I'm not really with him all the time. I've done since the first day I got my camera, as a matter of fact. He was like, yo, bring the camera to me and we'll go to like, because he had a video shoot that day. He was like, all right, I want you to work the camera, work his camera.
Wow.
And those pictures came out flawless because I had his camera. His things was already set. I had a few silhouette shots of him and just him instructing who he was with that came out perfect. And I was like, okay, damn. When it came to my own camera after he set it, it took me, 2-3 months before I actually started getting people to shoot with. Brooklyn Bridge outside. I did a shoot in a museum, the Met. And It just got better and better and better. Even though I was still tweaking the settings, I didn't have my 50 at that time. So it actually helped a lot. The 50 is what I use most. So those close-ups, those photos that are like right up in your face, that's what I'm using, the 50, which is like the go-to that I have now. I very rarely use the 18 to 55. But I think a 24, so that's even better.
I think all photographers, like there is no one photographer that doesn't have like a nifty 50 on their pocket. Like it's just like
No, it's like
it's a type of lens, you guys.
It's like legit attached to my camera.
Yeah. It's always like it's just like that's the go-to lens for any photographer, especially like portraits, shows, all these things. Yeah, but this is so cool that you had a mentor to start with. I feel like it's such a helpful tool. Like, how did you find them?
I've actually known him since like 2005 because I went to high school with him.
Okay.
So I've known him for a long time.
I was thinking about it yesterday because I went to my old Instagram, which is like my private Instagram, like people from high school, military. And I started like just looking like what's up with people. And I realized that people that I knew from high school, from army, from like, the old days, I'm like, each one of them is doing something so cool now, right? Yeah. Like different fields, different things. And I'm like, these are very, very strong connections as well. Like friends you go to with to high school, it's like you never know where they're going to end up, and these are like such valuable connections because you grew up with them. So yeah, sometimes it's so much better than going to like a networking event and trying to meet somebody. When you have like already so many people. So I was thinking about it and I'm like, use those connections, be nice to people in high school because you don't know where they're going to end up. And this is like, this is like a huge network right there. And there you go. Like an example.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Mentorship is definitely, wow. That's so cool. Are shows your, like venues, live events, shows your preferred like form of photography, or do you do also other things, portraits?
I've done headshots before. If I'm doing like individual shoots, it's like headshots, like outside. Like I've done a few that have ended up on websites. I've had people put the photos on a book.
Wow.
And then just people say, yo, I'm going to use these as a headshot, as a business headshot. I'll be like, go ahead, you do what you want to do with the picture.
That's nice.
But when it comes to like me specifically, I'm more like at events, poetry events, just random events. I got invited to a Christmas thing that was this past Saturday that I couldn't go to by the Poetry Society. I was like, oh, I didn't know they did Christmas events. But it was in, I think it was in Brooklyn. Either it was in Brooklyn or it was in Lower Manhattan. But I reached out to another photographer who I just met who said that she loves everything that I do, things like that. And she was like, oh, I'll do photos of you if you do photos of me. I'm like, hell, that's a good way for me to broaden out.
Yeah, no, definitely, for sure. I was talking about a previous episode about like bartering services, you know, like when people can do something for you, you can do something for them. That's especially when the creatives collaborate, that's like, it's a great form of collaborations and just generally like broaden your network. That's awesome. But yeah, let's talk about poetry. You know, we talked about photography, which is exciting, but I wanted also like, how did you get into poetry? That's a very, I don't know, it's very unique to me.
That's a very broad question.
Yeah, okay. So how do I ask that to narrow that down? So was poetry something that was in your life all the time? Like you were writing as a kid, you were just like writing lyrics, or is it something that you kind of like discovered later on in life?
When it comes to like writing in general, I've been journaling since I was like maybe 6 or 7. Every day about my day, things like that. When I got to high school, I met my mentor. I met a few other artists, close friends. They would rap, they would write their lyrics down, they would recite them back and forth. And I was like, damn, okay, y'all can do that. I feel like I could do it. And they kept saying, look, push. They pushed me to a point where they was like, yo, you have to write. Even if you don't perform it, you should always write it down. And it got to a point like mentally and emotionally where I was like, you know what, I'm dealing with a lot. Let me just write it down. And I wrote a poem in one shot. And I didn't look back at it. And it's the only poem that I've ever went back to revise.
Oh, wow.
I just wrote it all out. I was like, you know what, I can't deal with it anymore. And when it comes to that piece in particular, any single time that I do that piece at an event or something like that, that's my most powerful piece. It's called The Storm, and it hits somebody right there in the chest.
Wow.
And it's very, very powerful, very in-depth.
Do you find it hard to read when going back to these emotions?
So sometimes after I read it, I need to like take a breather. After I read that specific one, it's heavy. So it's like, okay, fine. I'll take a breather. Anything else like mental health, something talking about me, it's not as hard. But that one, since I don't really do it, I did it last Sunday after an event. We ended up at an open mic, and I was like, you know what? I want to do this piece. I did the piece, and then I had to like pull myself away for a little bit because it's heavy, really heavy. But I'm actually glad that I wrote it because it helped me get it out. I don't even remember the first time I performed it. I think it might have been at New Eurekan. I think. I'm not really sure. But I wrote the piece probably like when I was like 19 or 20. So it's one of the old, I think if it's not the oldest piece I have, it's one of the very first that I wrote. But it's heavy. So it's always been there, the poetry, things like that. Because I just love to write, I love to read. And things like that actually push me ahead. Reading Edgar Allan Poe, Maya Angelou, Tupac even. Like just hearing that expression, in a sense, pushes me to be like, you know what, I can do it.
I love what you said. You said a few powerful things, and I didn't want to stop you, but like I like put a mark into it because it's so powerful what you said. First of all, the part of writing and journaling and how powerful this is, especially if some of you guys don't have the safe space to talk to somebody, or you don't want to talk to anyone about what you're feeling, and you just, it needs to go out in some way. And writing and journaling is one of the most powerful ways to release this emotion, to deal with it, and if you're an artist, it becomes such a beautiful art, because like Michael said, it's powerful, and it hits people, because every time we think, oh, I'm the only one feeling that way. Bullshit. It's not. You're not the only one feeling that way, and that's guaranteed. That's why music is so powerful. That's why poetry is so powerful. Even photography, like art, just any form of art and expression, people see it and they relate to it, because many times artists like Michael, like myself, like other artists, we say something that is hidden into other people's hearts, and they don't say it. But then when they hear you say it, they're like, yes, I feel that, yes.
Yeah.
So please journal and write. And if you want to share it, we're going to share some places with you that you can go in New York and share those powerful pieces, because it means so much.
Yeah.
And you said something else. Damn it, I got so emotional. Oh, yeah. Emotional. That's what I wanted to say. You were saying about how, like, when you read this piece and it's so powerful that you need to kind of like go back and recharge a little bit. And it happened to me a few days ago. I was reading something that I wrote a year ago when I was in a really bad place. Every time I read this piece, I start crying. And I'm like, damn, how am I supposed to perform this piece if every time I'm like, I start tearing up, because it kind of brings me back to this emotional place. And I read my words and I'm like, holy damn, that was bad.
Yeah, that's how I feel about that piece in particular. I'm going to read it later. But
that's the one you're reading?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I wanted to ask you, but I'm like, I don't want to push it. I'm so happy.
That's the one I'm going to read, because that gives like an intro to like, oh shit, he's like super deep.
Wow.
He can get really deep, but he can also be very, very indirect and broad and things like that. It's about water. So it's like, all right, fine. Boom. But it's way deeper than the words actually say. It has a different connotation.
Wow. Well, we're going to cry today. Fun. Wow, so I'm excited. Yeah, so in the end of this episode, we're going to read some poetry. So again, stay tuned, stay with us, because it's going to be an emotional one, especially if you're an artist. Stay here, because, oh my God, it's going to be so valuable. But yeah, okay. We're going to dive into that later, but I still have like a few questions that maybe going to help some people, some newcomers, to New York, kind of like to navigate their way into what they want to do and how they going to go about their art, right? We're talking about either you're a poet, a musician, singer, spoken word, things like that. Let's say a person comes to New York and they want to get involved in the community and they want to start going to these events, never done that before. How would you recommend going about it? Like, where do you find these events? How do you know how to prepare to these events? I know it's like a broad question, so we're gonna like break it down. But let's just start simple. Like, how do you?
I'd rather start like where I started with it. I was like, you know
perfect.
what? I just went on Google.
Okay.
Went on Google. I went on Eventbrite. I was like, you know what? I feel like I need to hear it first before I perform. So I
do that all the time.
I ended up at New Eurekan, just there, just to soak it in and just see like how these people actually do it. Like get on stage, introduce themselves, introduce the piece, get into the piece, and then after they plug everything, where they can find, if they have books, if they have this, if they have that. And the more I went, the more comfortable I got. I was like, all right, I'm going here just to enjoy it. And I was doing that for probably about a year. I was going to these events at New Eurekan. And it's ironically the first place I performed on stage in front of a lot of people there. Because they have their, well, the venue is closed right now, but before they closed, they had a women's open mic, which I was photographing before I had my camera. They still have it. They have a regular open mic on, I think, Mondays. And Fridays, Thursday and Friday, they have a slam.
Okay,
which is
I'm gonna try to link everything below. If you can just send me the
yeah.
page,
I'll
so
send you everything.
yeah, so I'll link it below so you can check it out, and of course also go to Google and Eventbrite because there are a lot of open mics around.
Yeah.
A lot in Brooklyn, a lot in the Bronx, Harlem, Manhattan.
In New York City, you're gonna find one wherever you are.
Yeah.
Queens, Brooklyn, Staten Island, the Bronx, anywhere, Harlem.
How did it feel to go on stage for the first time?
It was scary. My heart was racing, but I was excited. And when I started to meet some people, I was like, is that normal for me to feel like that? They was like, yeah, of course. You're going to feel nervous, but you're going to feel good about sharing whatever it is that you need to say because it is going to hit somebody in any kind of way. It might hit everybody in the audience. You might got people coming up to you after, oh my God, where can I find you? This. And when it comes to like networking with people in general, now it's easier because I have like a wristband that links directly to my photography thing.
Wow.
So if you tap your phone to it, it pulls up everything. Phone number, Instagram, payment, booking, everything on that end. But that's specifically for the photography.
Like wristband, you mean like an actual?
Yeah.
Wow. I'll ask for details and if we can do that too. That sounds like a cool thing.
But most of the time when I'm wearing it, most people just come up to me and talk to me. But I'm like, I have this on, you can tap it. But most people come talk to me directly and they don't even realize that the band I have is how you would actually book. So when I get a booking like through an app that I have on my phone, it'll pop up like a text. This way I don't miss a shoot.
Wow, that's so cool. But I feel like, yeah, in the poetry community, like the few times that I went to a specifically poetry open mic, it is like, as I mentioned before, like it's such a tight community. Sometimes I'd see the same faces over and over again, just people like coming over all the time and new people coming. But I do feel like in the end of the show, people are just talking to each other and it's such a supportive community. People are sitting there listening to every word you say and actually connect to it. And like it's such a beautiful community. Because people don't just there like, oh, whenever they're gonna finish. Like, no, people are listening. And it's a safe space to express. Even like, again, even if you're starting out, like Michael said, like his first time, he was super nervous, but like I'm sure you got so much support after you finished your piece and in the end of the show, because it is a very supportive community. So especially if you have like stage fright and it's your first time, I would definitely recommend going to these spaces that I'm gonna link below.
I know a lot of them. New Eurekan, Open Mic Renegades, Harlem Bomb Shelter, Mictastic, Too Much and Extra. I know tons of places.
Are these specifically for poetry or like people come with music?
Most of those places are for like music, like an open mic, poetry, comedy, music, whatever. Mm-hmm. But there are specific ones that are for poetry. There's one called Voices in Power. And there's a few that are like specific for that. But most open mics cater to everything. Music, dance, poetry, comedy, whatever. But there are a few that are specifically for poetry.
That's cool. I find it sometimes I find it hard to like switch from an example open mic that has like everything and somebody comes up with a comedy, like 5 minutes of comedy, right? And then you go with your like emotional poetry and the audience is like,
I've seen that so many times.
It happens in open mic.
A musician or a comedian comes up, makes you laugh, and then you have a depressed poet on stage.
It's like such an emotional roller coaster.
I'd be like, damn, why did you have to come up now? But for Mictastic, and even when I was doing the women's events at New Eurekan, I would start off those events. Like I would be the lead anytime.
Nice. For
New Eurekan, at the women's events that I was, it was women mostly, but I was there as their photographer. Mm-hmm. And one time when Roe v. Wade got overturned, we was there until almost 2:00 in the morning, everybody. And the show started at like 8. Wow. So we were there for a lot because it was heavy. So everybody was like, had a lot to like get off. And it hit me kind of hard too. I was like, damn, okay. Things like that are heavy. I don't mind staying at all.
I can imagine that wasn't a very
It was heavy. I think we were there until almost 1:30 in the morning, from like 8 o'clock at night.
yeah.
But that was before I had my camera and everything. I was using my phone. I was like, all right, fine, I can use my phone to do the pictures.
Yeah.
And that host manifested everything that I have now. She was like, look, you're gonna get booked, you're gonna get this, you're gonna get that. And this was before I had my camera.
Let's actually, I now remember the question that I had. The question that I had is how. So we talked a little bit about how you got into the photography, but I wanted to ask about specifically how you got into the open mic spaces with Leah V. You know, like how did this journey start? Like, how did you find yourself in a women's poetry night photographing?
So the New Yorican host, Destiny, she I've known her since like 2018, 20 or 2017, and we've always been close. But when I was living in Brooklyn, she was hosting in the Bronx, which is where I'm close to now. I'm close to where she used to host before. And I went to a New Yorican event, her first women's event. I took some pictures. I showed them to her, and she was like, yo, you want to do this for me? Just came up to me. Oh, you want to do this? Be here with me every month, help me out, things like that. And she's like one of my closest friends, things like that. The same thing with Leah V. She noticed that I was doing the photography, things like that. And this was before I had my photography page. And people were like, hello, make a page for months. Because I would just post them up on the poetry account, things like that. And it was like, look, you need something specifically for that. I made it probably a month. So I got my camera in 2022 in November. So it just made 2 years. First time I used it at an open mic was December 2022 for the women's event in New Yorican. Leah V came to me. I was doing the events with Leah V as well from like the summer before I had the camera. And she asked me, I think it was last March 23, if I wanted to be her photographer. And I was like, do you have to ask? No, it wasn't March. It was like probably like middle of the summer, because she was getting ready to start in October. I was like, do you have to ask me? I've been doing this for you for how long?
That's awesome.
Yeah, she's one of the best people I have around, because she'll check on me creatively, she'll check on me emotionally, physically, like, are you okay? Like, is everything okay? She threw an event for me last week for my birthday, which was Sunday. And,
congratulations again.
And she was texting me at the table, yo, are you okay? Are you good? We had a group of like 20 people, but it ended up being like a group of like 11 of us all together because people got sick, things like that. I was like, look, I was expecting this big group, but I'm like, the people who showed up actually mattered most.
Yeah.
Some curators that I know, a bunch of poets, and it was very, very small that everybody was able to come up to me individually, say, oh, I love the growth, keep going, you're getting better. Just motivation on that end. So we had brunch, we had drinks, we took a bunch of photos, which I posted up on my poetry thing. And she posted up as well. I'm like, oh my God, you posted the same photos? No, but she really liked the photos. After the brunch, we went to an open mic where I won a raffle. So I won like a gift basket that I took home. I was like, oh yeah,
Nice.
I win a gift basket right before my birthday. Okay, fine.
There you go.
I was like, I guess it was supposed to be for me anyway.
That's awesome.
But
You remind me, sorry to cut you off. You remind me how important it is to like go out and actually be out there and not just, cause a lot of people nowadays are doing a lot of social media and everything is online and people don't want to go out, especially now in New York during winter time. It's harder to like actually get yourself going out, and I'm guilty of that myself with everything. It's just like, it's so hard to find the time to actually do that. But you sit here and remind me how important it is to actually go and physically be somewhere and be a part of the community.
Present, yeah.
Get those people, get those friends of yours to see them face to face. And create those opportunities for yourself. It's so important. Thank you for reminding me. I need that reminder. Yeah, wow, okay. That's an emotional episode. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just like, there's so much information and so many things are going through my head. The one thing you were talking about poetry and how this community is helping you and supporting you. And one question that I have is like, we did mention it a little bit before about how important it is journaling. And so, and I had an episode here. I had Mike talking about mental health. And I'm very curious also about your input into this community and just generally expressing yourself as a poet. Do you feel like this is something that helps you in that term of like, just your sanity, your like mental health? How does that tie into your art?
I mean, it actually does help a lot. Like, even if I'm just there just to watch without performing, without my camera, like I used to go to a bunch of them just to like recenter because things were off emotionally, mentally. I was like, you know what? I just need to get out and hear people. And that was when I was started. I found Open Mic Renegades. I found New Eurekan. The two platforms that I'm a part of just started recently, but I was bouncing around. Oh, New York, all right. Brooklyn, all right. Manhattan, all right. Queens, okay. And it actually does help when it comes to like their support for me because I support them.
Yeah.
So it's reciprocated very well. Come to this show, come to this show, come to that show. And everybody who was at that event last week was like, yo, I love who you are. Like outside of poetry, outside of everything else, I love the person you are. I'm like, it's rare for me to hear that from anybody, especially in person. So it hits me, who's very emotional in general, hard. To hear it in person, to get a hug, to be like, look, I'm here for you because you actually matter. And everybody told me that last week before we ordered, yo, I'm proud of you, things like that. I got a picture, I got a card, I got a framed picture, I got a card, which everybody signed. And I was like, okay, that's something that I'll need to like open up and put in a frame and have it on my wall or something. And I haven't had that type of support. Like, all right, my friends are going to take me out. I haven't had that at all. Because it's always been, all right, I'm going to celebrate by myself. I'll take myself out. I'll go to dinner. I'll catch a movie. Or I'll be around family. So far this month has been like everything aligning. All right, my friends will take me out. All right, I'll celebrate with family. All right, I'll get to see my mom. I'll get to see my dad. I'll get to see everybody close. My grandma, everybody. And so far this month has been amazing in terms of like the support for me. And every time I'm talking to like anybody who's a poet, oh my God, I love who you are. You, just you. Outside of the poetry, outside of the photography, me as a person, you matter to me. And just hearing that is a lot. Because imagine. I don't do it myself. I don't say, all right, you're good at this, you're getting better at this. I have to hear it from other people or just see it, like in the photography thing. Some of the photos that I started to take when I first started were super dark, super dark. And that was when I had the lens that the camera came with. Now I have a 50, 50's way brighter. And they're like, oh, I want you to do this event. I want you to do that event. Now people are reaching out all the time. I'm like, all right, I'll do the events. And that's good to actually know that they could actually reach out to me whenever. I said, look, if you need somebody to help you out, I'll do it. This Sunday, I'm doing an event in Brooklyn for another friend. And she was like, oh, I want you to do the photography for me. I'm like, okay. And that's just good to hear people reaching out on that end. I was like, do I have to ask to perform? She was like, no, you're already on the list. And that's good to know that I could use both interchangeably.
I think it's so important what you said now, how New York can get lonely. Any city can get lonely if you don't have your community, your friends, especially those of you who are coming here alone, without family like myself. finding your community, and we talk a lot about this in the show, about knowing where to find your community. And again, it doesn't, if you're an artist, a poet, a musician, a comedian, spoken word, all those things, you have this episode it will lead you to the community that you can find for yourself. But if you are not an artist, you can always go, just listen, just hear the words. You don't have to perform, you don't have to engage, you can just listen and find your community. I think it's important to understand that this community is not only, oh, you're not an artist, so no, thank you. It's not that. But, there are other forms of communities. If you're looking for other forms of communities, you can watch other episodes when I talk about the See You Soon, the Shaka Club, even with Mike when we talk about Sound Mind. All these places are different communities that you can be part of. You don't have to be a part of one community. You can be a part of all these communities if you have the time. Please do. Because New York can get lonely if you're not going out of the house, if you're here by yourself, if you find it like kind of hard to just go out by yourself to a bar and like start networking with people and just like talking to random people. I feel like these communities give you the space to have something in common already. So it's not like, what we're going to talk about. So definitely, I mentioned a lot of communities during these shows, like in these channels, and you can always DM me or you can DM Michael to ask him about communities and like other spaces that he recommends, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
But please do. Like
that is perfectly okay on my end.
Amazing, thank you. Because community is so important. It's like it gives such a support that so important. I'm gonna ask you a difficult question. Like not emotionally difficult, but like a difficult. But when you and maybe it's the same for you, but like I know artists usually like my storage. Jesus. I'll deal with that later. Artists, because many artists are good at different forms of art. Right, we have poetry, photography, music, comedy, like a lot of artists doing many, many things. Do you have one that is preferred to you, like photography or poetry, or like what's the weight for both of them in your life? And I apologize because you're going to be answering and I'm going to be like dealing with my storage and my phone.
No, you're good. The poetry was always first when I first started because that's all I was doing. Then when I got the camera, even when I was doing photos on my phone, it was like, okay, I'd rather do that than perform all the time. And now it's kind of like very, very balanced in that sense. All right, I can go to an open mic and just do photos and hear everything. I don't have to perform. But a lot of my friends are like, yo, if you see a mic, you have to be like, all right, you got to get on. I'm like, sometimes I don't want to. They was like, no, you have to. I'm like, it's back and forth. But sometimes I do both in that sense. I'll perform first to lead off the show, and then I'll get behind the camera, or I'll perform towards the end of the show. And it's a good balance. So it's kind of like both. I'm very, very integrated with both. And I'm doing photos whenever I can. If I'm outside, whatever, I have it. I'm like, you know what? I'm not doing anything today. I don't have an event. I'm not doing anything. I'll just go outside and snap. Or work on a piece or something on that end. Because it helps. It helps me mentally, emotionally, just to do something that I actually like doing.
Okay, thank you for the elaborate answer while I was trying to deal with my storage in my phone. But I get it. Like I completely understand that, because sometimes I will ask myself the question of like where does my art lie? Like if I need to kind of like rate that, but in the end of the day, I feel like it's true. As an artist, it's all of it, and it's everything has its own way of expressing yourself. And if you're good at this, and if you enjoy that and like that, that's like why choose, right? I feel like when I was in the music school, I was kind of forced to choose, to be specific, to be, and even if we're talking about like the previous generation, right? It was all about like one choice, one thing to like to have this one thing that you like
Right.
mastering, right? And nowadays it's not like that anymore. It's exactly the opposite. You need to know everything. You need to be
Yeah.
that and that and that and that, and on top of that you need to be your own marketer, your own manager, your own agent, sales, everything. Like you need to know everything. So I completely understand. Like that's sometimes it's just it's there is no one that is more important than the other. But let's talk about I'm like getting deep with you. I'm like, give me information. But when we talk about because we were talking about going out and being in those events and all that, let's talk a little bit about the money aspect of that, because some people come here and they need to find like a regular job, like a 9 to 5, or and they're still an artist, they're still a poet, and it takes time to like grow that to the point that you make an income out of it. So for example, for me, the most of my income generates from photography, because it's a service to other people.
Right.
So it's not like poetry is more on the emotional side, and I feel like poetry will make you money once you like very big. Like it takes time to, that's just the reality. And although poets have way to monetize their things, like through social media or through books, but photography, that's a service. So I wanted to ask you also, like, do you feel like sometimes the income part of it takes more weight when it comes to, for example, the photography kind of like takes over because that's what generates the income, and then sometimes you don't have enough time to poetry or to go out?
When it comes to that, I have a regular 9 to 5. As a poet, I just perform just to do it.
Okay.
When it comes to like big events, things like that, like my main teams that I have, Mictastic, Too Much and Extra, I would get paid to do those events. Like some, like the big events, like some of my friends ask me that aren't with that team, I'll be like, you know what, I'll do it. I'll do it just to do it. To get the exposure, be like, oh shit, he took the photos, or he did a really, really good job. Let me reach out to him. But when it comes to like individual shoots, things like that, I'm doing that to build a portfolio. But when it comes to like income from photography, it's coming from the events themselves, the open mics, the triad shows, and just the events themselves based on ticket sales, how much they can give, things like that. But it is really like balanced with the actual job.
So you have a regular
actual
job,
job,
and then you do that. Okay, you heard that right. So there is no excuse to not go out and do that if you have a regular job. That's hard. Like I'm really like applauding to you, because doing a regular job that, again, I don't know if you like it, don't like it, how you feel about that, but it's like it's a job, it's a responsibility. You need to wake up in the morning, you need to go there, you finish the day, and when other people are going to the couch to watch TV, he is going out with his camera or with his poems and like to perform to. And let's talk about like being on those events. Like no matter how much you enjoy that, if you're an introvert and like you take energy out of it, like you gain energy out of it, that's amazing. Sorry, I meant extrovert. If you're an introvert, that's hard. If you're an introvert, like even if you enjoy socializing with other people, you need a certain like social battery. And after a day of work, I am applauding to you, because I'm like when I have like a day of photo shoot and I coming back home, like the last thing I want to do is to go out again and to grab my camera again and to like feel emotional with my poetry, because I'm like so drained. So that's so hard. That's hard, but it's possible. He's doing that. I have so much to learn from you. I mean, you're sitting here talking and I'm like, damn, I need to get my shit together. Like here you are having a 9 to 5.
It's crazy because one Saturday after the last Off-Broadway show that I had a photo shoot that same day.
Wow.
That morning I had a photo shoot in Brooklyn, and the Off-Broadway show was in the afternoon. So I was like, all right, I got to be there at the theater by like 1:00, because the show was at like 2. It was from like 2 to 6. So the photo shoot was from like 10:30 to almost 12:30. Bunch of photos, things like that. And I can actually do that if I wanted to. All right, I'll do a photo shoot early, and then I'll do something else after. Or I'll just go to Central Park or Brooklyn Bridge or somewhere that I know is okay for me to just relax and rest and things like that. But I've done multiple things in a day, and that's where multifaceted comes in, because people are like, "Damn, you could do all of that and still perform." I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah,
And then that,
that's what I'm saying. Like, it's really hard. But you're sitting here, kind of like telling us, yes, you can do that. There is no excuses. I wanted to ask you. My phone is bugging. That's so annoying. So I'm like, it takes me out every second. But I wanted to ask you because this is something actually like a personal question that I'm really curious about. I wanted to ask about in this realm of like poetry, there are a few different definitions to. I don't know. You probably like know better than me like the different definitions, but there is like poetry, slam poetry, and spoken word. What are the like? What's the difference between those?
poetry is just like the general overview, like writing to perform in that sense. Slam poetry is based on like it's judged like a competition. So you perform, you have a time limit for your piece, and then they'll judge you based on like everything, like the composure, the technique, anything that you used in the piece. And spoken word pieces, which I have a few of, are meant for like a big stage. But poetry is like the general overview of all of that. So poetry is at the top, slam poetry is underneath, and then everything else is underneath that. But poetry is like the bigger one in that sense. I've written a few spoken word pieces. I was like, wait, what? That was like, yeah, that's what that is. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that, because of how I wrote it and how it sounds when it's performed.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't think I know like the difference. Like, I don't know what type of poetry I'm writing. I sometimes I'm like the things that I hear online. It has like a very certain rhythm
Right.
to the poetry.
Like certain ones do.
Yeah. So I feel like I never wrote like that. I feel like the way that I write is a little bit more just like kind of like just like short lines into verses, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're like different versions of that.
Different forms of how to write. Because I used to do a lot of workshops where they would say, all right, write in this form, or write in that form, or write something small. I'm like, all right. So I'm versed in that, but I'll just write it out in like 3 lines at a time, 2 lines at a time, and then just go like that. So it's more free verse for me than anything else. Like I'm sticking to a form or trying to keep a syllable count, things like that. Because I've written pieces that are like that. All right, keep a syllable count throughout the word, throughout that line, and then do it again, and then do it again. So I'm very like refined when it comes to like writing and things like that. Because I used to post a lot of like written poetry on that page, the poetry page. And it's like, okay, now I don't have to, because they know like I can do it if I need to. If I just need to write something and put it up there like words, I'll do that. With Mictastic, with Too Much and Extra, I would get video if I was to perform. So the last video that I have on my page was from September. So I think that was the last time I performed before last week.
Wow.
So I perform when I want to. I have to feel up to it. All right, I'm going to perform today. No, I'm just going to listen. I'm just going to take it in. For Mictastic, if I don't want to perform, I'll tell Leah, look, I'm not in the mood for it, and I'm not feeling emotionally there. She'll be like, look, just do the photos, and you perform when you're ready. Same thing with Too Much and Extra. If I don't perform, that's fine, because I would still get the photos. They would tag me in the photos. They did a special birthday thing on Sunday where they posted photos of me with my camera. I'm like, all right, fine. That's good, because it lets more people see me outside of, oh, who's taking these photos? You know, they know me by face, but if I'm not in front of the camera, they wouldn't know. If I'm not in front of a camera, they wouldn't know that.
Yeah, I get that. Sometimes I like, how this form of like, I want to, but I'm scared, and sometimes I'll be behind the lens and I'll think, oh, I want to be in front of the lens, but then you put me in front of the lens. I'm like, no, 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 too much. But wow, it's such a great conversation. We don't have much time left, and we still have your poem, and I want to take, like, before you read the poem, I do want to take like a little break so we can recharge, so I can freaking fix my phone storage. But yeah, but before we're gonna recharge, but before that, because after the poem we're gonna finish, I wanted to ask if you have some sort of advice for beginning poets, for people coming to the city, anything that we didn't cover, anything that I didn't ask maybe that you want to mention.
Just go. That's all I can say. Just go. Even if you're not performing, even if you just need to like get to a point where you can perform, just hearing it is a lot. Because I've been to open mics before I was on these platforms, and I was like, you know what? I just need to hear it. Because sometimes if you hear it, you'll be like, damn, I feel like writing something now, or after, or on your way home, or whatever. That's how I feel almost every time after my team's events, or just a general open mic in general. I'd be like, you know what? I feel like I want to write something down. And I have been working on like a few new pieces, but I feel like doing the older one. But in terms of just any advice, just go. Just go to one, just sit there, just soak it in. Because what you soak in will actually transform into something that you could actually recite. Like, all right, I picked this up from that person, or this person, or from the whole event as in general. But just make sure that you go to them in a general sense.
That's a great advice.
That's what I can say.
I need to follow this advice. That's I definitely need to follow this advice. But yeah, wow, I'm so excited to hear your piece. I'm very excited. As I said, I'm gonna give us a few minutes, just like a song or two in the middle, so we can prepare mentally for reading and fix the technical issues here. But yeah, if you are live with us, stay tuned. If you're on YouTube, you don't care, because I'm gonna cut the break. So we're gonna be right back. Hello YouTube again. Let's hope the video works this time. Can't promise anything, so you might just see a lot of Michael. I'm not gonna mess with that anymore because it distracts me, and I really want to be in the episode. And I don't like that. And I was telling Michael, I'm like, my phone updated, and now it's so hard to function with it. So I don't know what's happening. Yeah. But yeah, anyway. So if you lose footage of me, sorry.
You got me.
Yeah, you got Michael for the rest of the show, but you're gonna hear me, so that's good. That's important. Okay, so we don't have much time left for the episode, and as I promised, we're gonna read some emotional poetry here today, and Michael is gonna read his piece that he was telling us about, which I'm very, very excited for. And but before that, I'm gonna read you a poem that I wrote, because you mentioned before how there was a poetry night that went for hours in the women's night, and I actually have a poem about that. It's called Choice. So it's pretty short, but I'm gonna read that before you read your piece, and then we're gonna kind of like finish right away. So I'm gonna like kind of like do it the other way around, and I'm gonna do the ending now, and I'm gonna thank you for being here, and I hope that you got all the advice that you needed, because there was a lot of powerful things said here today. And I also want to wish you Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's and Happy Hanukkah, because it all falls under the same umbrella this year. Everything is like at the same time. So happy holidays to you. I'm not gonna do the episode right after New Year's because we're resting. So I'm gonna see you like a little later in January. I'm not gonna see you on Instagram, but for the radio show, I'm not gonna be here for, I think, like a month. So happy holidays and happy vacation season to all of you that are going to vacation. Celebrate, be with your family, be with your community, enjoy, and stay tuned, because we're not done yet. It's just after that we're gonna be too emotional. So I'm just saying it now. But yeah, happy holidays, definitely. And so I'm gonna read the poem now. It's from my book, Pretty and Alone, that I'm advertising harshly on this show and everywhere else, because you just need to get it. That's a perfect Christmas gift, by the way, if you're still looking for a nice Christmas present. Anyway, yeah, to kind of like shift the energy, this poem called Choice. It's associated with this photo of this woman. I took it in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro. Let me read that. You have no idea what it's like. You can't begin to understand. Got no pussy? Don't tell me I feel you. You will never feel it. You were born a man. You think you relate, but that is not true. Thanks for the empathy. It sure sounds nice. It's not really helping. Words just won't do. Ain't good enough to just sympathize. Ever felt like your power was taken from you? Someone else made a choice while your hands are tied? It just happened to me, and there ain't much I can do, since my right to decide was denied. It's no longer enough to say you are with us. Words alone, with no act, can compete. The change has to come, so do what you must. Take action or admit your defeat. Admit your defeat. I hope that one day you'll see it's important, that you stand up with us and fight alongside. If it ain't for me, for your mom, for your daughter, there's nothing to lose if you try. That is my poem that's called Choice. Thank you. Thank you for listening. And it's actually, I'm not, like, I never read poetry out loud, like in front of an audience. I think one time. There's the very like art to it, so like how to, the flow of the poem.
How to integrate it.
Yeah. So I'm still like learning, and like what you said, actually going out, listening to other poets and actually try.
It helps.
It really helps. So I'm definitely going to start doing that. It's hard, it's like, it's a lot of emotions involved, and when you don't, thank you for listening to my poem, and I'm so excited to hear yours. So please, whenever you feel ready.
This is the poem, The Storm. There are times in life storms are inevitable. The way one deals with them is totally up to you. You can have a little bit of terror or a little bit of awe. My life has been through a share of thunderstorms. It gets hard to navigate and maneuver at times. Strength, power, and courage are all required. The storm clouds stick with me just like a shadow, only existing to remind me of how bad things actually are. Whenever that happens, my tears flow like a river. If I try to close the floodgates, it's super difficult, as the water will still leak out from behind these gates. Yet I still have to open these gates to release all of this pain. This anchor is so heavy and too hard to manage. Like Jesus and his cross, it is a burden I must carry. My perception of the man I am will never change. Alone in an ocean, trying my best to stay afloat, being sucked down into a cold and empty void, trapped inside my own hell, the sunken place. In this hell, I scream, and yet nobody hears me, stuck in a conscious state but unable to react, in a brawl that seems impossible to overcome. Faith in myself is just decreasing with every minute. Both my eyes and my body start to get heavy. All the lights around me go out as I fade to sleep. Surrounded by darkness, I search for his light. It's hard to find, but in time I can talk with him. I ask him if I can ever make it out of this hell. You have the willpower to beat it if it's a desire. You are my son, and I do believe in who you are. You just have to be able to prove it to yourself. I just don't feel like I'm strong enough, Father. The drive to push past my drama is not there. Is there any way for me to see my true potential? At that moment, he taps me lightly upon my chest. I knew what he was trying to tell me all along, that the willpower I need is inside, laying dormant. Sitting there, I patiently wait for the pain to end. The clouds part as bright sunlight reemerges. My eyes scan the sky while I look for my sign. In a break in the clouds, my rainbow can be seen. With that series of events, I've restored my own faith, because I know I have gotten through the worst part. Patience is key to overcoming obstacles in life. Be still and allow the bad things to wash over you. There will always be a reason for one to smile. No matter what type of pain you have to carry, it's important to remember this small key detail. The storm will end and the sun will come back. Told you it was deep.
Wow. I feel like I need to hear it more times to actually, wow, that's
actually let it soak in.
Yeah.
That's a piece that I used to do all the time before before I started branching out and doing like mental health things like that. There's a piece that I wrote that's going happy, sad, fighting. There's that one. But that's the one that I do a lot and I get everybody's reaction. Yo, that hit me hard. I know exactly what you're talking about. Like good, that's the point.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, we're gonna end with that and process everything. But thank you so much for listening, for staying tuned. Michael, thank you so much for coming.
Anytime.
All the links that we mentioned, everything and additional resources for open mics and things like that. Michael's profile, like Instagram profile, it's all gonna be linked below. So please check him out and follow him. And if you have an event and you want a photographer, and if you have a poetry night, or if you want to attend a poetry night, please be sure to connect. And have a wonderful, wonderful holiday season.